In today's video, we are going to be doing another upgrade to the Traxxas Slash 4x4 Ultimate Basher build. Now, to those of you that watched the most recent video with this machine, we unfortunately had a mechanical failure at the end of that video. So let me get the body off, show you exactly what's going on. Looking down in there, you might be able to see the pinions down in there, but the pinion's no longer connected to the motor. That is right, guys. Our motor shaft completely broke. Now, that might have been my own fault because I was using the smaller size shaft. I probably, in hindsight, should have gone with a 5mm shaft for this motor, but I went with like a 3.175 or 3.25, whatever the smaller size is, and I think that came back to bite me because, unfortunately, on one of those super hard landings, I broke the motor shaft. I'll go ahead and put a card in the corner. If you want to check out that video where it happened at the very end. I thought we had just stripped the spur gear, but no, that was not the case. Neither one of them is actually stripped. It's just that the motor shaft broke. So what we're going to have to do in today's video, I've been really thinking about this. I've been deciding, what do I want to do? Do I just want to replace the motor? So I decided, yeah, I'm going to replace the motor. So I ordered another one of these exact same motors because I like this power system. I ordered another 3200 kV 1412 Castle motor. But this time I went with a 5mm shaft. But here's the twist, guys. The twist is, even though I like this system, I'm taking this system out of this truck because I want to use it for a different project. So in today's video, I am going to be installing a whole new power system in the Traxxas Slash 4x4 Ultimate Basher build. So let me show you what I'm thinking. Before I unveil the new system, I'm going to take the motor out so you guys can get a closer look at what happened. Come on. There we go. All right, as you can see right here, the motor shaft just snapped clean off. And that's mainly probably because it's a smaller size bore. So actually this right here is a 5mm bore pinion, but I had to use a little adapter sleeve for it to adapt to this size bore. And as you can see, it snapped just back behind where the pinion connects. So that would make sense. That's a weak spot. And the shaft is only a 3.175, I believe, is the size. So that's why I ordered another 3200 kV 1412, because I like the amount of power. I like how it feels with this system. And really, I've had no issues with this system. I think once maybe I had heat issues with the Copperhead 10 ESC where it went into limp mode. That's when I was bashing it really hard in very hot weather in the sand. I guess another issue, pretty recently, the on-off switch broke off. So on-off switch is pretty flimsy on this machine. So it broke off, but I mean, it's still in the on position. But aside from that, it's held up very well. But like I said, I want to use this for a different build. So that's why this system's coming out and we're putting something else in. So I'm going to show you exactly what I'm thinking. And I don't even know yet if it's going to fit. I'm hopeful we can make it fit. So let me show you. So for the ESC, I am thinking this right here. Now, for those of you not familiar, this is actually just a rebranded Hobby Wing. It's basically a Hobby Wing Max 8 with less programmable features. So this is a 150 amp Redcat ESC. So Redcat Racing, this actually comes out of the Ready to Run Kaiju. So that's their 1A scale 6S capable monster truck. Now the other thing is I actually had to cut. Most of you know, if you watch my channel, I don't like soldering, but I did actually have to solder for this because the Redcat Kaiju has two Dean's connectors for two batteries. So it has two different leads, and Dean's connectors are really no good for power. So I ended up snipping those off, just brought it down to two, just a positive and a negative, and then I soldered an XT90 on. I kind of botched this one right here, the negative, but as long as it holds, it'll be fine. Wasn't my worst job soldering. So decided to go with an XT90 plug so we can just run one battery pack. Now, for a motor, I'm still deciding on that. It's all going to depend on what's going to fit. Originally, I wanted to use the motor that came out of the Traxxas Max. So, if you guys remember when I was running the Traxxas Max in the sand with the Spectrum Firma ESC, and that one started on fire, that motor, which is this one right here, it's a little bit charred on the back. This motor right here, I believe, is still all right. Like, it still feels fine, still spins smoothly by hand. So I imagine this motor's all right. And it's got 4mm connectors, so it'll connect right up to this ESC. The only issue is the length of this can motor is pretty huge. And just to iron it up, this ESC right here is bigger than this one. So if we're going to get this ESC right here, put in that spot with this motor, There's no way it's going to fit. I think this is too long can of a motor. Too long of a can of a motor. It's a good half an inch longer than the motor we're taking out. So, as an alternative, when I bought this ESC, I also have the motor that comes from the Redcat Kaiju. So, this right here is the 4268 2100 kV 4-pole brushless motor. So this is a quite a bit shorter can compared to the Spectrum 100, or sorry, this is a Spectrum 2050 kV motor. So it's probably almost half an inch shorter. It's still a little bit longer, I think, than the Castle one. And it's obviously a larger can, you know, dimension-wise. So that's going to be the trick. Can we get this one in there? This one, we might be able to make this one fit. But if worse comes to worse, we might be able to fit this motor, but then we might have to put the ESC somewhere else. So I'm thinking maybe up here, which isn't going to look great, but I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. There isn't really anywhere else to put it if it doesn't fit here. So the plan right now is I'm going to go ahead, tear this one out off camera. And like I said, you'll see this in a different video because this is going to go in another machine. But I'll be back with you guys once I get everything torn out. Alright, so I got the Castle system stripped out. First, let's just get the motor attached to the motor mount. Get it kind of lined up. Let's see. We want the cords lined up like that. Then we're going to want it like this. Use a dab of thread lock on these threads. Hopefully you guys are seeing this all right. All right, put that one in. Once I get this in, we will see if the motor is going to fit. And then I also want to get that pinion off the broken motor shaft and see if this pinion, this is a 5mm shaft right here, so the pinion should slide right onto the shaft, but I don't know if that means it's actually going to fit. All right, so basically this notch right down in there, that's where this piece right here perches or sits. So it rests right there. So we need to get this down to here, which it looks like it will go. So that is going to fit. But here's the issue. I can already tell you the motor's right up against where that it's right up against where this mount needs to go. So this mount right here, it's going to be sitting right up against it. I mean, I might be able to cut this mount down a little bit more, but it's going to be right up against it, and it really needs all that space. The only other option I have is using no mount and just trying to put the ESC in here. So this is how much space we're working with right now, guys. It's not a lot of space. But ideally, I'd like to get it into the stock location, because up here, it's not going to fit great either. It's not going to look good or fit great up there. See, but then we have the issue of the receiver box. It's hitting right there. Yeah, I don't think there's any way this ESC is going to fit in here because of that right there on the receiver box. That's why. Could move the receiver box up here, which is what I might actually try to do. So I might get the receiver ripped out, unscrew the receiver box, and see if it'll screw right up here. So then we'll have a ton more room to actually mount the ESC up where the receiver box currently is. So I'm going to do that off camera. I'll be right back with you guys. I've got the pinion gear on the motor. That fits fine. And I think it's going to work all right, because it appears I can actually get the gear mesh and everything set. So as you can see, maybe you can't. Actually, lifting this up will be easier. The pinion gear, we can get the motor pushed far enough, but as you can see, this motor is very close. The can of the motor might potentially spin right up against this. Like, it's extremely close. We'll have to see. Otherwise, I'll have to put a bigger pinion gear on to push the motor further this way. That's the only other option we have. Actually, after getting the gear mesh set, it's a little loose, but I think we actually might be clear. It's going to be super close though, but I think the can is actually going to clear that. I'm just going to slide that pinion a little bit further forward. so it gets good contact with that spur gear. By the way, if you guys are enjoying the whole Traxxas Slash 4x4 Ultimate Basher build, make sure to show your support by hitting that like button, also subscribing, hitting that bell, so you'll be notified when I come out with new videos, because next video, if everything goes well, we're going to be testing this system. Alright, I wasn't quite satisfied with how the gear mesh was looking. It looked a little loose. Then I kind of messed with it a little bit more, then it was a little too tight. I think now we have just the right amount of wiggle room in there. So, and it sounds good when I'm pushing it. So, now next step is moving on to removing the receiver box, mounting it up here, trying to get the ESC fitted right here. So to get the receiver out, basically you have to undo the double-sided foam tape. If there was double-sided foam tape on your receiver, you got to remove that. Get to the screws that are right underneath of it. Remove these two tiny little screws right here, and then it lifts out. And that will give us a ton more space to put the ESC right in here. And actually, we don't even have to use that motor, but now that I have it fitted in, I think I probably just will keep this motor in there, and we'll use the Spectrum one as a backup. So they're very similar KV motors. This one's just a little bit shorter of a can. So now we can see if the receiver box is going to mount up. It should mount up. It won't line up with those two holes. It'll line up with these two though. So I can mount it forward like that, which is what we're going to have to do. I might just have to do double-sided foam tape right onto the chassis, which I don't really want to do. But where can I screw this? Like, this isn't really going to fit in there now, so this mounting plate really isn't going to work. I'd like it if it did, but I mean, we could get one screw holding it down on this side, but I don't know if one screw is going to be enough. Then there's nothing to screw this side down. We could drill a hole right there. Options are kind of limited with what I can do, but I want the ESC to sit somewhere in there like that. So I'll have to do a little bit of a mock-up just to figure out how everything's going to work. Thus far, I got the receiver box mounted up here. That's going to work. I actually ended up drilling a hole right here so we could actually line up the holes with existing holes on the chassis so I can mount this down. It's not going to be perfectly flat on here, but it's still a better base to actually use double-sided foam tape compared to actually like the honeycomb of the chassis. That's going to lose adhesion pretty quick when water and dirt and crap gets underneath of it. So this will still be a lot better way to mount it, and it's going to be sticking off the sides, but I'm thinking something like that. It's going to be sticking off, but it's going to be sitting somewhere like that in there. Let me do a bit more work off camera, and then I'm going to catch back up with you guys. I am back, and it is finished. Finally, it actually turned out a little bit better than I thought. Take a look at it. It looks a little bit cleaner than what I thought it would. Now, ideally, I wanted to get these wires tucked down where the where this holder piece is that ties into the chassis, but just the way that they were already kind of like, I don't know, turned, it was just easier to zip tie them up top. But I tried to make it look as clean as possible by using some zip ties just to hold it together so these wires aren't all flopping around. As long as this double-sided foam tape holds, I think this, I keep on wanting to say Max 8, this Redcat Racing Kaiju ESC should stay in place. Got the on-off switch mounted up here. Got the receiver box mounted up there. Looks pretty clean. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. I think I got my gear mesh set good. So really all I have to do now is get the gear cover on, and I'm going to go through some of the parameters on the ESC. The good thing is I can still use my Hobbywing program card, because the Redcat Racing, the rebranded Hobbywings, you can still use the program card. So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to turn up a few things, because I know a few things stock need to be turned up, like the braking set at like 25% stock. I'm going to turn that up to like 75%. I'm probably going to turn the punch level up, maybe a few other things I'm going to adjust. But if you guys did enjoy this video and the system I went with, it's a budget-friendly system. You know, this wasn't super expensive. I want to say it was like 150 bucks for both the motor and the ESC. So that's really not bad, considering a Max 8 will set you back probably like 130 by itself, 120, 130. I was able to get a motor and an ESC for about 150. So that's really not too bad of a price. So cross my fingers as long as they hold up. So stay tuned for the next video where we're going to be testing these out. This thing should be an absolute ripper. So make sure to hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell. Stay tuned for the next video. Later.